Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for hitting play today. Really excited that you've chosen to do that, whether you're playing it on one of the amazing distribution sites that we have, whether that be iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible. There's so many great choices. There, of course, is home base as well, opspodcast.com. It's a great place to listen as well, but you can also leave a review while you're there listening if you choose to do so. Love to have that happen. Speaking of things that I would love to have happen, season 14, as I already mentioned, our theme for this season, ready, drum roll, is in effect. We're going to be talking about the mask. Now, I know for some of you, you're thinking mask. Okay, are we talking a catcher's mask? Are we talking about a hockey mask? I mean, there's a lot of things that get invoked when you hear the word mask. I mean, I think of Jim Carrey, even the movie The Mask, even in that, unveiling, a revealing, even in that movie. For the next little while, we're going to be talking about this great revealing that takes place. What a better way to kick off season 14, episode 1, talking about UFOs. We've also done a little housekeeping around here, and I want to introduce you to this amazing voice and this amazing young lady that I have met, and she's actually been a past guest. So for your next project, I want you to strongly think about using her voice. This is not an AI-generated voice, much like some people have suggested. I assure you, she is a real person, and she has a great message to tell you why you should continue to listen to Other People's Shoes. Without further ado, let me introduce to you my good friend, Jess. Jess, take it away.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes, the podcast where listeners get to step into the lives of others and see the world through their shoes. Your host, Neil Matthews, is a seasoned interviewer who has a natural talent for empathizing with his guests and drawing out their unique perspectives. Through a combination of storytelling and insightful questioning, Other People's Shoes explores the lives of a diverse range of guests, from everyday people to celebrities and thought leaders. Whether it's discussing their personal struggles, triumphs, or unique perspectives on social issues, Neil always approaches his guests with an open mind and an eagerness to learn. With a warm and welcoming style, Neil creates a safe and supportive space for his guests to share their stories, while also challenging listeners to broaden their perspective and think more deeply about the world around them. So tune in to Other People's Shoes with Neil Matthews and get ready to step into Other People's shoes.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for hitting play today. Super excited about our guest today. Before I get to him, though, I do have to say this. Full disclosure, I don't keep booking people from North Carolina because I want to talk about North Carolina basketball or football or whatever. I want you guys to know that. It just happens to be what people send me. I mean, if they're from North Carolina, we're going to talk to them. Okay, you just got to know that, all right? Just get that out of the way now. As we walk into that conversation today, I want to ask you guys a weird question. Now hear me on this. I grew up an E.T. kind of fan. I grew up with Will Smith and Independence Day. I grew up with these movies and these images of ET, extraterrestrials, UFOs. And I always thought to myself, nobody really believes that stuff, right? That's just Hollywood. That's just dramatic stuff. That's just the day the earth stood still kind of stuff. That's Area 51. Come on, that's conspiracy, tinfoil hat, living in your mom's basement. That's all you can think about. Today's guest is going to take us down a journey and a path that I've kind of always secretly wanted to go down, and now we have an opportunity to. So help me welcome in my new friend, Chris Bledsoe. Chris, how are you today?
I am doing great, and I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, Chris. We're excited to have you, as I mentioned. So Chris, before we get into your story and kind of what you're about, we always like to lead off the show with this question, and that's this. Chris, what size shoes do you wear?
I wear 9.5.
And is there a certain brand or a style? You strike me as just a shoe nut, like one of those guys that just has mountains of shoes and just has them everywhere around the house. Is that not you, or am I misreading the room?
That's not me, and I wear orthopedic shoes. shoes because of rheumatoid arthritis. I have to wear Skechers, these very lightweight type shoes.
Oh no, I've heard of Skechers. Those are one of the shoes I mock the most between that and New Balance. So, but that's fun. Well, Chris, as I mentioned kind of at our intro or our opening statement, you kind of had this event happen to you. Now, I know you've probably shared this event, these series of events in a number of ways in a number of different avenues. For me, what happened?
It's a very long story, and it would take hours to tell it. Basically, what happened was I was a home builder for most of my life. Other than a commercial rated pilot, that was my first career. And I married a love of my life 40 years ago next month. And we began to have children, and that kind of ended my flying career because I wanted to be home. So I went into the building business, is what my dad did. And along about 2001, 9/11, when the World Trade Center disaster happened, I had 100 houses 72 under construction. I built about 100 a year. There were 72 homes going, and suddenly in Fayetteville, where I live, is a VA market, Fort Bragg, and it just shut down the housing market immediately. And so I had so many houses, so much interest going out on construction money. At 8%, I watched a slow motion train wreck happen. I had been in business 19 years, living in a nice, home with a pool in the back and 4 little children. I was sick. I had a debilitating disease they call Crohn's disease. And I had been dealing with that in some form or another for years, since I was about 25 years old. It started getting worse. It got to, because of the stress from the building business and my whole empire was going downhill, the Crohn's got so bad that I ended up having a near-death experience in 2004. Put me in the bed for 2 years to where I couldn't run my business, and it was just all going south. So I ended up selling out. I lost everything I had, my home. So we fast forward to 2006, late 2005, we moved out to a small double-wide mobile home next to my dad. I mean, we were leaving a big home. So I'm starting over in life at 46 years old, and I'm sick. I had just had a near death. And so here it goes. It was January the 8th of 2007. My father asked me to manage a construction job on the coast, which I did for 4 months. And just before Christmas of 2006, we were about done with it. And the guys had to go back for a punch list and to get the final check on the job. And that started after the New Year's. And on the 8th that day, they come back to town and brought a check. There was no need for me going back down there. And I was still sick, really bad sick. They wanted to go fishing to celebrate having finished the job. 2:30 in the day, after they got situated, they called me, and I went and picked them all up, these 3 men and my son, my oldest boy, Chris Jr. We went down to the Cape Fear River, sat on the bank. They did. I never fished. Turned into the most terrifying experience ever. I actually walked away about 3:30 in the day. After they were 3:15 maybe. I just imagine a 200-yard cornfield from the main road to the back. It's 200 yards across with a little dirt road that crosses the field. And at the back, at the wood line, it goes down into the river bottom. What happened was, after they got fishing, sitting on the bank, I walked away. I walked down in the forest for a while, trying to clear my thoughts. I'm crying out to God, what do I do? I'm 46. I can't afford to feed my children now. I'm having to apply for free lunches at school. And, it was at the bottom of the barrel. And I didn't let them know it, but I was crying out to the heavens. And so I came back out of the forest just before 5 and said, do you guys want to fish more or go home? And they wanted to fish. So I got them up long enough to get a fire going and a big pile of wood. And I said, look, I'm going to walk back up to the field the way we came in, to the main gate, which is about a quarter mile through the woods and up to the gate. And it's up on a hill. At the top of the hill is the gate. So if you're standing at the bottom, you got 1/8 of a mile up and you see the gate way up there. but you can't see the field. It's just you're so low in elevation. Anyhow, started up that dirt road at 10 after 5. In January, it gets dark at 5:30 around here. So I wanted to make it up and just sit there and talk with the heavens or whoever's up there. I was desperate, crying out. Did not know what I would run into. When I got up to the top of that hill, there were 2 balls of fire 50 feet across, and they're glowing tangerine orange, red, and they were swirling flames shooting off of them. They're about 300 yards away, out at the highway, just past the highway, just above the trees, and it frightened me terribly bad. I used the hill to hide myself, kneeled down, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what is that? Commercial rated pilot, I knew it wasn't nothing of ours. Fear had set in. I was totally afraid, and so I decided to run. I'm going to run back down to where my son is and these 3 men fishing because I was afraid. I really got afraid, sitting there, hiding, just peeping over that hill, watching. And they were huge and close. And so the moment I turned to run, I had to look back. I stood up. I'm hiding behind the hill. So I stood up to where they could see me. And when I went to run, a third one appeared above me. Looked just like the other 2, 50-foot ball of fire. And it shot down beside the other 2, and the next thing I remember is the last 50 feet walking up to the fire. They didn't see me coming because it was dark, and I could see a small fire burning now with 3 men standing around it. My son wasn't there. I didn't recognize it to start with, but I trotted up excited to say, you guys won't believe what I just saw. And they were, really, where have you been? I said, I was just up at the field. I hadn't been gone 20 minutes. They said, no, you've been gone all night. We've been looking for you all night. I said, well, where's Chris Jr.? And they said, we lost him 2 hours ago. He went on foot back in the back of the woods, the back of the cul-de-sac where you went earlier looking for you. And we can't find him. He said 2 of the guys got in my truck and drove up and down the road for a couple, 3 hours looking for me while I was always one at the fire in case somebody was to walk up me or Chris Jr. I panicked. I ran to find Christopher, and he was in the forest. When I found him, he was hiding up under the thick shrubs right along the edge of the forest. That grassy area is really, really thick. And once you get through about 10 foot of that, it opens up because of the tree canopy. Nothing grows up under there. The edge is always thick. Well, he was hiding under the edge of them bushes, and I nearly stepped on him when he come up from under there. He was terrified. He was panicked. And I'm like, what in the world, son? He said, where you been, Daddy? Where you been? I've been looking you all night. I said, no, son, I was just up at the field. It was only 20 minutes. He said, no, you've been gone all night. These creatures scared me really bad. And I saw them, and they came, and they were red balls of fire. And when they got near me, they were glowing, these translucent little 3.5 foot tall figures with red eyes. They looked at me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. And they stayed around me forever. Got him back to the fire. These guys were freaked out really bad because they heard me talking about fireballs at the road and Chris Jr. talking about these little creatures. And actually, one of those guys had seen that red orb come by. Suddenly, one of the gentlemen shouts, look, and we all look up above us, standing around this fire right on the riverbank. The little river's only about 60 yards wide there. A whole bunch of stars. They look just like Venus at night, bright, glowing star, or Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. There were 8 or 9 of these that came from different areas in the sky, and they came together in a circle above us. They were way up there, and they did all kinds of maneuvers around and out and back, and it was like they were playing. 3 of them actually descended all the way down and landed in front of us across the river. And pandemonium set in. We took off out of there and drove through all that mud and up that hill hard as we could go to get out of there. Afraid, left the fishing poles on the bank. Everything. Everyone panicked in fear, thought the world was being invaded. And when we got to the top of the hill, now we couldn't go anywhere because the very one that took me was on the ground in the road in the field in front of us, blocking our path to the highway. So we got 3 on the ground on the river behind us, and we got 2 in the air and 1 on the ground in front of us. The same red fireballs were still there. Finally, after a few minutes, and the details are in the book, there's a whole lot more I haven't said here, a whole lot. The story is 16 years of this, meeting people from the highest levels in Washington, to NASA, to CIA, the DIA, the DOD. All of these agencies have been a part of my family's life for the last 15 years. Finally, we heard 3 gunshots. We don't know where they come from. And after the third one, this thing in the road is now like a football, about 50 foot across, but laying sideways right over the road, an egg maybe shape. And it turns and it comes straight at us and goes up over my truck. It was so low, I could have shot it through the sunroof with a slingshot. It was that low, no sound. And it shot off, and out of there we left in a hurry. The story just keeps on going, but that's kind of a start to it all right there.
Like a flyover, if you will. The fastest version of that story you could tell, probably.
Well, that's just the beginning of it. I could sit here and talk for 2-3 hours and still not get to the end of it because it's ongoing. I mean, it's still happening every day. I film it. It's the most studied case in history by the U.S. government and academics. It's ongoing. That's not me saying that. That's the U.S. government quoting that in the foreword of my book.
Well, again, I love the idea of not giving too much away, letting folks investigate more, let their curiosity, in a sense, run amok, if you will,
right,
in a good way. Wow, what a powerful experience. Did you remember it being gone? You have no memory of... You just remember walking up to it, and then the next memory you have of basically walking back to the group where your son was. It's the only memory you have.
Well, at that time, there were 4 hours of missing time. I was gone 4 hours, and the memories I have I could not remember whatever they did to me. They put a block in my memory that was very painful. If I tried to think about it, I would pass out. I would have this terrible migraine would start, and I would just pass out right in front of people if I was questioned. And there was a Harvard-trained doctor came to my home and started doing hypnotherapy on me. We actually filmed a show on Discovery Channel in 2008 called UFOs Over Earth, and that's a whole nother debacle. They did a hit job on us, and instead of vindicating us, they tried to make me look like a liar. They didn't show any evidence. It was an awful thing, which then turned my family on end. They really to destroy my whole life and my family. The whole community. I was born and raised a Baptist, and I married a Pentecostal holiness girl. 40 years next month we've been married. Suddenly, I'm now no longer with Crohn's disease. When they took me for 4 hours, they took my disease away. I've never had another symptom. In other words, the day before, I couldn't eat any fried food. I couldn't drink anything but water or maybe a Sprite. I couldn't eat all sorts of foods. I had to eat bland, baked chicken, no grease, no anything, because I would be in the restroom 20 times a day. That's how bad it was. And now I am coming home telling the world that I don't have this disease anymore, and that I was praying and these balls of fire came, which some call UFOs. That's why I put that on the book. It was a terribly frightening thing, but I no longer had this disease. Suddenly, my whole community turns on us. The church ostracized me. It was the biggest nightmare. The kids, my children, were picked on and mocked at school. They just knew the devil himself had graced my presence, and they came with holy water sprinkling my yard and me and my children. And I mean, it was the biggest mess. And it's still like that to a lot of extent. And I'm saying, look, I was praying to God, and these balls of fire came and took away my sickness. It's not the devil. So I've had to fight that for 16 years. It's ongoing. It still happens. It turns into a beautiful experience.
Well, got a couple questions for you, Chris. So the first one that comes to my mind is, I always hate to say the word devil's advocate, because I don't like to give the devil any more credit, especially as, you know that I'm a Carolina fan. We don't give the devil credit for anything, right? Especially those devils in Durham. We don't give them credit for anything. I say that to say, let's flip the coin a second. I want to be a cynic and a skeptic for a second. What you said to me, and you kind of laid out for the foundation for us, you're financially strapped. You're at a loss. I don't want to say suicidal, because I don't want to put those ideations into your head. Right. But you're kind of in a moment where you're crying out to a deity, a God, a somebody, a higher power, we'll say. and you're on this bank. Strike me as somebody that's maybe had a drug issue or an alcohol issue or a substance abuse issue. That doesn't seem like you just in our small interaction together today. To me, the skeptic and the cynic in me says, well, Chris, this was just your way to get out of your financial situation. This was just your way to create, fabricate, and now I'm really stressing that you did all this to get this notoriety, to get this fame, so you could get out of your financial situation. This is an easy thing to correlate together. I mean, it doesn't take a Harvard educated or a Yale Ivy League person to put those pieces together. I mean, come on, Chris, let's get real for a second. This didn't really happen. This is your just claim to fame of 15 minutes.
Wrong. I never received a dime from any of this. Discovery Channel offered me money to film. I never took a penny. I could have written a book 15 years ago. I never did until 16 years later. To this day, I have very little to nothing. I live in an 800 square foot cabin on a pond on 15 acres. I'm totally disabled from rheumatoid arthritis, unable to work. And so finally, 16 years later, I write this book. If you only knew how much of a struggle it's been. And if you read my book, you'll read the testimonies from academics and from the U.S. government, from all these, the CIA and all these people that have written the forwards and written the introduction to my book by U.S. government officials. They study it with me. Let's go a little further. This summer, there's going to be a new television series coming out that will show how the phenomenon appears around me to this very day. It's still appearing. I still film it. I've gotten over 2,000 videos in the last 2 years. I don't really go out every day trying to get this. It's here and it's all around me. And the world needs to know.
Why do you think they picked you? This entity, you don't even yourself call it a UFO. I mean, UFO by definition in your mind. If I were to say, what does UFO mean? What does it mean to you?
It's an unknown flying object.
Just to make sure, because that's what I would know it as well. So you have no idea why this UFO, why this entity, why this ball of fire, as you're describing, has chosen you as their spokesperson?
I have no idea, but I can surely prove to you that they are all around me. I filmed probably 40 videos last night with my daughter and her husband of orbs flying all around us. I mean, ground level, in the sky as well.
How big are they? Are they softball size? Are they Volkswagen size? Like, give me kind of some
They're
diameters.
all sizes.
Okay.
The closer they come, the smaller they appear to be. And I think there's a reason behind that because of the electrical energy from them could be damaging to the human tissue. Like, this is what NASA told me. If you read this book, you will see just how many government officials and how well documented this case is. It's the most studied case in history by the U.S. government and the academic world. And that's not me saying that. That's government officials saying that.
But you really have no idea why they picked you?
I would have to say no. I have no idea why. I guess they need to pick someone, but, you know.
You're like, why'd it have to be me?
Right. But I'm glad they did because I don't have this Crohn's to deal with anymore. And it was removed from.
Well, that's amazing that they got rid of Crohn's. But my question is, and maybe this is if you ever get a conversation with them, couldn't you take in the arthritis? I would like to wear some cooler shoes rather than these orthopedic ones.
Yeah, I'll pray about that. And in the book, you'll see that. And, you know, I really believe it was the people. The people were the worst. It's not the phenomenon, and it's not the government. The government's been the only ones that have come to my home, and they're continually coming to study this, that helped my family. It was the community. It was the people that was horrible to us. It's the ones saying, no, it didn't happen when they have no idea what they're saying. And we can prove it. I can prove everything I'm talking about as far as the phenomena go, and we're going to publicly. This year, we're going to prove it on television in real time.
You mentioned praying.
Right.
Has your faith in Jesus, and maybe that is your deity, maybe I'm inserting that, maybe I shouldn't have, but has your faith in any way been changed, shaped by this? I mean, you mentioned not having kind of that quote unquote church community. Do you still consider yourself as a person of faith?
Probably stronger now than I ever have been, because when it comes in prayer. I walk outside and I look up to the heavens and I call on God, and here they come. The sky lights up with orbs, balls of fire, and here they come. And this is what we're filming, and this is what people will see. And it comes straight from prayer. It doesn't come from talking to any other way. It comes from prayer to God, and that's how it appears. There's a lot of negative stuff out there about aliens, and Hollywood has had their thing. But I'm telling you, it is my belief that it's the same thing that's written in the Bible from 2,000 years ago. They talk about chariots of fire. They talk about angelic beings being creatures. Ask Ezekiel when the wheel within the wheel appeared. What comes out of there? A creature with 4 faces. Face of an eagle, face of an ox or a cow, face of a lion and a man. What's that about? People get in their mind that angels or grandma with wings or babies with wings. If you have academics that know, which I've studied with them, they'll tell you every experience with an angel is a terrifying experience. It is my belief that's exactly what this is. It's about God. It's the heavenly beings from God, from the old Bible. Those people were seeing the same thing. No different. It's always been here as part of creation, my opinion and my thought. I'm not selling aliens by no means, because I haven't had that experience. It was never that. Ongoing. That's the thing. People will see soon. There's a direct connection with myself and this phenomenon in real time.
Chris, if you got, like we're having right now, if somehow, some way we could organize an event, create an event, let's make it in Chapel Hill. That seems like a good place. They use that stadium on Saturdays every now and then.
Right.
But if we created an event where you could somehow get these fireballs, these orbs, this energy, this whatever this is, to show up where a lot of people could see it, do you think people would still believe, or do you think there would still be those? Again, I was being a little bit playing a role of the skeptic, by the way. I do believe you. If you say it, I'm going to believe it. You seem very genuine in that respect. What do you think it would take for people to truly believe and understand that this really did happen to you, and all those naysayers, all that noise, that's what I call it sometimes, could just fade away and really truly believe? What do you think it would take for them to do that?
Well, I can tell you this. In 2007, there was no room for UFOs at all in the conversation. The government revealed this truth, a little truth, in 2016. It wasn't as classified as it was at that time. 2007, it was top secret, the whole UFO phenomenon. 2016, they loosened up on it and started mentioning it and talking about it. 2020, when COVID hit, the government went on television and announced that there is really something out there. Most people were asleep and never heard that, but the U.S. government admitted to it in 2020. I had been working with the government for 15 years, and I still do. And what's more important, we're not even touched on, is the list of miracles that have happened around myself. And there's a story in this book. I'll be in Washington in a couple of weeks, my wife and I, to visit this young boy that is from a well-to-do family in Washington, D.C., appointed by the president, his father, to do the job he does. In 97. That's how long he's been there. We had a son that was dying, had to make a wish. He was 12 years old, and they told us he'd not make it to 13. Friends of the president, pictures of him in the White House with President Obama sitting on his desk in the Oval Office. Well, his mom is a doctor, and his grandpa is a cardiologist in New York, and a beautiful Jewish family from D.C. Rumor was going around by NASA and different ones that Chris has an ability. He was given this ability to help people. And I don't make that claim. I say it's God doing this. So they flew me to D.C. in 2015. They called me the week of the 4th of July and said, you need to come to Washington tomorrow. Like, for what? My family's coming home from college. I got 4 kids, going off to college. You need to be in Washington tomorrow. What's more important, 4th of July or a sick child? I said, okay, send me a ticket. So next morning, I was on a plane to Washington, D.C. This person picks me up and takes me to this house in Arlington Avenue with all the 4th of July beautiful decorations, and it's right near downtown Washington. This child had a feeding tube in his stomach, never been able to eat because of mitochondrial DNA disease, an incurable death sentence. So they were desperate. They had no more resources. This child had been in Boston University's hospitals and Mayo clinics and everywhere they could find. They had unlimited resources. But instead, they reached out to some guy in North Carolina. Was kind of like a last straw. I actually spent that afternoon with the family, and I can tell you, Mama called me yesterday, excited, have us come up there and spend a couple of days with him, which we do pretty much every year or every other year, to celebrate because he's going to be a junior in college next year. So this is in the book, the 16-year journey. And that's not the only one. There's others like that. So I just had to throw that in there so the people listening would understand this is much bigger than an alien. This is much bigger than the show The Men in Black. All that's just television. Truth is there's something around us intelligent that hears us. They hear your thoughts. They know your thoughts. They know your prayers, know what you're going to say and how you're going to react before you do. And I've proven that. And I think we'll show that more this summer.
What does your wife think about all this? What does your family think about all this?
They all experience it with me, all of them. All of them. The church, they're still the conservative church. A lot of the churches have come around a lot and to this, listening to this and trying to make links. Yeah, my family was ostracized completely by the schools, by the churches. And my wife's, we have a church in our yard here. On our 15 acres, we have a church here. Because when COVID hit, my wife's family are one of the leaders in the Pentecostal movement. They brought it to North Carolina. My wife's family did. And that's how deep-rooted I was in the religion. I was a deacon in the Pentecostal Holiness Church. So they still have a problem with it. But that's okay. It'll all come out and everybody will see before it's over. The world's in trouble right now. This is bad stuff happening around this world. And I can tell you, there is something trying to wake us up before it's too late.
What would you speculate the trouble is?
Well, we're destroying this planet. Terrible weather, and there's wars, endless wars and suffering all across this planet. It can't continue on like it's doing.
So, back in the Bible, as your guy, Jesus, was walking around, my guy too, by the way, he often had these Matthew parties with Matthew, one of the disciples, one of the 12, who was a tax collector prior to being a Jesus disciple, wrote the Gospel of Matthew. But he would have these gatherings. If you could have gone to a gathering with Jesus, and maybe it's a modern day gathering, maybe Jesus comes out to the property somehow and shows up in physical form, what would you say to him?
Lord, I don't know what I would say. I'd have a million questions because I followed, Jesus all my life. If you read this book, you'll see why I did. I was shot in the back point blank at 10 years old with a shotgun, blew a hole in me big as an orange in my left shoulder, point blank right here. I got lead around my heart and around my chest that still when I walk through the airport, they pat me down because it shows up on their sensors. I would ask him, why has this happened to me? Why is these disasters? From 2 years old, of catching a fire at 2 years old, to being shot at 10, to being face busted open across 24 stitches in my mouth. And Dr. Jeffrey McDonald, that killed his wife and children, was the one that stitched me up. All this is in the book. Fracturing my T6 in my back from falling off of a building, from freak accidents, to a brand new car exploding the radiator on me and put me in the hospital with third-degree burns. I've had something trying to end my life all of my life, it seems, only to all this pure suffering, having a relationship with something now that's going to change the world before it's over with. It's just coming. They're going to come, and they're going to wake us all up, and it's happening. I really believe it. At least that's what I'm being told.
So speaking of being told, have you had any kind of like what we're having right now? Have you had a dialogue with these?
Yeah, it's in the book.
Could you give us a little sneak peek of maybe one of them, the dialogues, if you're willing to share that?
Well, they told me, I don't want to spoil the book, but I will tell you, 5 years after it happened, 2012, I was ready to give up because of the people. It was horrible. The people are horrible for the most part. They'll hide behind fake names on social media and bash you and tell you how much of a liar you are and how terrible you. It's just terrible how people will It's like there can be a man dying on the street in New York, and people will walk by him and look. They don't care. They'll talk bad about the homeless, people that are suffering and starving, but let a dog be injured and 400 of them will pile on him to save him from whatever situation it's in. People is what's made it hard on this family. Triumph is here. I've written this book. I have a pretty good force of government officials behind me. Now the academic world. It's all in the book. I don't know what I would ask Jesus other than thank you for, just being a part of my life. It always has been.
Do you almost wonder if all the, we'll say negative, the being set on fire, the shotgun incident, the radiator thing, I mean, just a little bit of the snippets of the challenges and the trials that you've walked through. Do you ever wonder if all of those were deterrents or trying to break you in some respect to stop you from being able to experience what you're now experiencing? Has that ever crossed your mind?
All my life. From the beginning, I used to cry out, God, why did this guy shoot me? I had a near death there. It blew a hole in me this big. I mean, right in line with my heart. Something stopped the lead. 350 pieces of lead entered my body. 350. That's how many was in that shotgun shell. And it's right near my spine, it's near my heart, and all these vital organs, but yet it never touched the one up. Still have lead. I got lead here you can see in my stomach if I put my shirt off, visibly, because it's come through out to the surface. So something was trying, I felt like, to snuff me out while something was trying to protect me all these years. It all came down to the wire in 2007 when I was ready to give up on life. I never would because of my children. I've raised 4 beautiful children. My daughter graduated NYU with a double master's. My son is a data scientist, a master's degree in data science, and works for East Carolina University. My other son is a psychologist, and my oldest son that had this incident with me, he's a contractor, and they're all very successful, all beautiful kids, and all are right here with me, experiencing this with me on a daily basis, and so are their mama, and hundreds of people that are witnesses, hundreds of people are witness to this with me, scientists included.
Well, as we were getting ready to have you come on, and we are starting this new season you're part of, by the way, season 14, which is called The Mask. And the big thing that I wanted to really, I guess, stress in this season is this idea and this premise of an unveiling. Because I think for so long, many of us, maybe yourself included, has walked through life kind of in this mask. Jesus called the mask a hypocrite because in Jesus's day, again, going back to him, they would have plays like we do nowadays, but they would wear a mask and then they would take the mask off and then they would reveal their true self.
Right.
America needs to reveal this in order to truly be free. What would that revealing be?
I don't look at it in terms as America. I look at this as a world issue, the whole wide world. And I think that we all need more. We need God in our lives. We all do, to stop this hatred and to stop this violence and stop these people that are just rude to one another. What happened to happiness as a whole? That people are struggling. There's so much suffering going on in the world. And I will tell you this, of all the people that have written me or called me over the last 16 years, and there's been a whole lot. I mean, I've had 1,000 people write me in the last 4 weeks, 1,000. At least people are writing me, telling me I had an experience. I saw this or I saw that. And I never told anyone. And I always wanted to talk about it, but nobody, I was afraid to because of the ridicule. People are tough. People are so critical. Instead of listening to you, they want to criticize you. Oh, it don't exist. Well, I'm going to tell you, of these people that have written me over 16 years, 80-year-old ladies, 85-year-old ladies, widows, young people, I always ask them, what was happening in your life when this started happening to you? What caused you to have these paranormal experiences? And it's always, nearly 100% of the time, My daddy died, my mama died, my daughter or son died, my husband left me, homeless now. It's always suffering. And this phenomena comes to those who are suffering. My husband died, and suddenly I'm finding stuff all over my house that wasn't there before. Why? I saw this light outside of my window, and it recognized me and it shot away. Why? Well, everybody's going through cancer or going through some traumatic event when this phenomenon starts happening in their life. 99% of the time, that's how it happens. So I would ask, why is that? What force cares enough to come when you're suffering?
I grew up evangelical Christian. Back around 2010, I had kind of a leaving of ways, parting of ways from one church. I was looking for a job. I was kind of desperate. My daughter was very young. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I had to take a part-time job, super part-time job with the local city that I live in. I was a gym manager for this rec league for little kids learning how to do basketball and volleyball and whatnot. Very humbling job, by the way. This is way below my skill set. This should be a high school kid doing this job, not a 30-year-old man. In that moment and in that process, I met some Mormon, LDS, Latter-day Saints individuals. And they started sharing with me about the Mormon faith. And well, I never really knew anything about LDS people or anything like that. And so they said, hey, we want to send some missionaries over to your house and tell you about them. I'm like, fine, whatever, bring them over. I don't care. I was so desperate to just talk to anyone. I was like, yeah, send them over. It's fine. So they come over and they start telling me about the Mormon faith and all this stuff. And I thought, this doesn't sound like the Bible I know. This doesn't sound like the Jesus I know, just my opinion. And so I started really researching the Mormon faith and everything like that. By the way, I'm not LDS, for the record. If you are, that's your choice, but not my choice. I started reading more about Joseph Smith and his story, about how he came to know the golden plates and how he kind of bring them about and all that stuff. One of the things, though, that he talks about is this encounter with an angel. I know my Bible pretty well. I've read it pretty thoroughly. There is a line in the Bible that says sometimes an angel can mask himself, or a demon can mask himself as an angel of light. Do you think in any way these may be demons? And if
Nope.
not, why?
And I don't believe that demons can come into this world physically. If you read the Bible thoroughly, you will find out that they're always that of possession. Just like the swine, there were 1,000 demons within this legion. And what happens? Jesus walks up and they immediately flee. They want to be cast out, and they went into the swine and died. They're not walking around physically here. They possess the spirit. They can take over your mind and body. Only the angels can come into this world. I study this, biggest academics in the religious world, continually. Demons can't read your thoughts. You've heard that? They can't read your thoughts. Only God can. And I can tell you, this phenomenon reads your thoughts. It knows your thoughts. It knows your stuff. It's always watching. It's always around us. It's no different than the prophets in the Bible. And I'm not claiming myself a prophet by no means. But I can tell you, look at Paul, the apostle. He saw Jesus. He saw God. What did he see? A ball of light. That's what he encountered. And if you read the firsthand writing of Paul, which I've heard it quoted to me by academics, that he says that this ball of light came down, knocked him off his horse, took him up to the third level of heaven, and put a thorn in his side. And he thought they were demons to begin with, and then realized it was about God. That's just my take on this.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I appreciate the clarity on that. Well, Chris, I know we have a ton of your stuff. We have a ton of ways for folks to reach out. We have that. But now give us an opportunity, those that are listening right now. How can someone get connected with you? What's the best way they can buy the book? All those things.
You can go to my website, ufoofgod.com. And there is a link to Amazon, or you can go directly to Amazon. But if you go to my website, you'll find my social media there. You'll find testimonies from government officials and from lay people to academics testifying to they have been here, they have seen this, they know the story, that this is the most studied story out there. You can see videos of the phenomenon on my Instagram. I post videos to it. I've gotten thousands of videos and photos, but I only have about 50 or so on that site. And there'll be more to come. Yeah, UFOofgod.com. or you can go to Amazon.
Chris, I know you're a little older than I am because I said I was 43. You don't have to say how old you are, but I think you're a little older than I am, right?
Yeah, I'm 61.
Okay, so good. 61, you're kind of losing your memory in some respects. You forgot one place that they can get it, but that's okay. That's okay. You probably didn't know this, being older and all. So we're also going to link it on our website, opspodcast.com, under books that I love. It'll be up towards the top so folks can get it there too. So if they want to, link back to your Amazon stuff as well. By the way, it is just below the Roy Williams Dean Smith book. I just want to let you know that we can't have it that high up. You understand that though, right?
I can tell you right now, it's number one in Christian Faith at Amazon, bestseller. It's number one in Angels and Spirit Guides at Amazon. It's number one in Religious Faith at Amazon. There is a lot of books listed at Amazon, a lot. Like 32 million books. And this book, and they're not all in these categories, there's many categories, but in the Christian faith category, in the religious faith, and in the angels and spirit guides and unexplained mysteries, this book is, and the reviews are fantastic. If you read the reviews, it's life-changing to a lot of people. It's blown my mind how many people are responding to this.
I can't wait to get it and read it, by the way. I will commit to that.
Yeah.
I don't often read books from authors, but yours has me absolutely intrigued. Like, I want to know more. I really do. All right. Well, Chris, let's do some silliness. It's only fair and fitting that we do some silliness. Being in North Carolina, I thought it was only fitting that we use a North Carolina cup for the silliness. That seems to be okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
There you go. Go Heels. So we do this silliness at the end of the show. It's called Senseless. It's just these silly questions about our senses, and then sixth is the wild card. So I'm guessing, you didn't bring a cup and a die to the interview? No?
I've got my coffee cup right here somewhere.
But no die in it. So there's the part. So, but any event, I'm going to roll for you. It's a random thing. So that's why we roll a die. And you got my favorite number, which is 4. There you go. It's even a light blue 4. Look at that. How fun that is. Yeah. See, it's always light blue in here. Number 4 is this. And we changed these up this season. So we have new questions. So for those who have listened in the past, this is the new and improved Senseless for season 14. So here we go. 4 people you would love to meet. 4 people you would love to meet.
Lord. 4 people I'd love to meet. I'd have to say talking people on Earth.
Dead or alive, it doesn't matter.
I don't know how to answer that. 4 people. I don't have television. I haven't had it in years. I'm not starstruck by Hollywood folks. I'd like to meet the president.
Current president or a past president?
Any of them. To make it to where they are, that's a pretty big achievement. Just to walk in the Oval Office, I'd love to do that. Of course, I was a Ronald Reagan fan way back then.
All right, so maybe Reagan. All right, we got 1. Yeah. We got 3 more we got to get to.
I'd love to meet Jesus.
There you go. There's 2.
I'd love to have met Paul the Apostle from the Bible.
All right, there's 3. 1 more.
I'd love to have a conversation with him. And I'd love to have met my great-grandfather. His name was William Bledsoe. And that would be an honor for me to have met him. I never did. But I study about him.
What would you say to William Bledsoe?
I don't even know. I'd like to know all about him, where he come from. And I wished... That's the reason I wrote this book. Is so my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren will say, my grandpa was pretty cool. Against all the odds and against all the people that just purely mistreated his family, he was there and he never gave up and he never wavered in his life and in his beliefs. So I'd love to just know more about him, to know where it all come from.
Thank you again, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you giving us some moments today.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it. It's really been my pleasure.
Well, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. That is our show today. Before we go, though, I got to ask this question because I am just dying of curiosity for you right now. How the heck are you processing what you just heard? Because let me just tell you, like in real time, there is so much more we could have gotten into. There is so much. I mean, we could have probably had a 3-hour show like Joe Rogan. I mean, we could have just kept going. I just feel like. But I like these kind of cliffhangers. I like these kind of like, what's going to happen next week kind of things. Hated in TV shows like Batman and things like that back in the day. Stay tuned for the exciting conclusion of the Caped Crusader and his boy Wonder. Hated that. Batman in the reruns. But I want to challenge you in this right now. What have you always believed about the higher power? Now, whatever that is for you, I don't know, because that's so open-ended on purpose. But let me be sure I unequivocally say this. I truly believe that if you allow Jesus in and all around you into your life, not just as a guest, not just as a special friend, but truly embrace and encompass everything that he's about, teachings included, I really believe your life would dramatically be changed. Now, again, what has Chris seen? That's a great question. And I think we're going to leave that up for you to interpret and to understand. But definitely, I'm going to get the book. I'm going to invite you to do so as well. As Chris mentioned, you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on our page, opspodcast.com, under Books That I Love. It'll be up towards the top. But before I let you go, I want you to just be challenged this week. What is out there? And do I really understand it and know it? And if the answer is no, stop searching Google. Go right to the source. Just think about that this week as we get out of here. And also, don't forget this. Remember, do not ever forget. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.